What's going on, everyone? So, per Shams, Los Angeles Clippers star Kawhi Leonard is expected to be sidelined for indefinite period of time to start the NBA season as he rehabilitates and the inflammation in his right knee, league sources tell me, and notorious OHM. So, Kawhi Leonard, once again, unreliable, once again, injured. His knees are shot. I don't understand why the Clippers decided to continuously give him extensions, continue to not just come to the realization of he's done. Yes, he is spectacular still when he's on the basketball court, but the best ability is availability. This guy couldn't even be on Team USA because his knees were shot. And then the Clippers and management stuff tried to downplay, oh, we are so... They were right. Look. One person was right, one person wasn't. And it turns out it wasn't the Clippers. And the Clippers just keep believing that Kawhi Leonard's knees are just magically going to revert back to 20-year-old Kawhi. It's not going to happen. He's done. Clippers are cooked. They're cooked. They should have traded him a while ago. They should have blown this up a while ago. You had your window. Didn't work out. Best you got to was the Western Conference Finals, which was the first time in your franchise history, which is, that's something, right? Yeah, you finally got there. No one blames you for trying to make the push, right? There's a lot of organizations that are content just being, a lottery team every year. At least Steve Ballmer and the Clippers, they want to win. They want to be competitive. But you've had now, 10 plus years? Longer? Of just the Clippers, every year it's their year. Every year they're the top team, right? Dating back to Lob City. And that didn't work. And then you got this new, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and whatnot. And it's yeah, that's great, but they don't work. No, and there's nothing wrong with admitting hey, we tried and it didn't work. We're going to reset, retool, and try again. Right? Especially with a guy like Steve Ballmer who's willing to spend whatever it takes. He doesn't care. He has more money than every owner combined. The guy doesn't care. Taxes, whatever, pay it. Mate, he wants to win. But the Clippers just continuously make poor decisions, time and time again. Paul George. And before I dive into the Paul George part of this, I know Paul George is hurt too. He got, a bone? It turned out to be a bone bruise. But he avoided any structural damage or anything like that. So he's supposed to be reevaluated in a week. Usually a bone bruise is 14, so basically 2 to at most 3 weeks. Usually the timetable. That at least that's what's being reported. So he should be back. He probably misses the first 2-3 games, something like that. Maybe a handful of games just to be safe, but then he should be back. At least if you would have had Paul George, at least you would have had that, and it would have been Paul George and James Harden with a bunch of role guys, and then Kawhi can kind of take his time, rehabbing and getting back. But now you can't, right? Because you lost Paul George for nothing. Literally nothing. And this is what is so, ridiculous. As soon as you gave Kawhi Leonard that extension, that was your signal. We got to do the same for Paul George. They're a package deal at this point, right? Because, again, you're either making the decision to move off of both or you're making the decision to move off of one because Kawhi Leonard is unreliable. Look, Paul George hasn't been a model of health. Paul George hasn't been a model of consistency. Paul George has his concerns as well, but he's been more reliable than Kawhi Leonard. And at least if you have Paul George and, semi-reliable, and then James Harden, who's been reliable, not really the playoff time, but been reliable, and then Kawhi kind of take his time, you only really need Kawhi healthy come playoffs. Right, Paul George, James Harden, and a bunch of role players probably get you, at worst, a play-in. Kawhi comes back, right? You win the first play-in game. Boom, you're in the playoffs. And then if Kawhi can stay healthy, you have a shot. Right? That's kind of what you're hoping for. Maybe Kawhi and James Harden with a bunch of role guys, maybe they can get you into the playoffs as the 6th seed. And then Kawhi comes back, and now you guys are good. Maybe Kawhi plays a game or two before the season's over, just kind of getting rhythm, getting to a flow, and you're good. Right? That's what you're hoping for. That's the idea. But you lost Paul George, and you lost him for nothing. If you would have turned Paul George in a couple things, you would have traded him to the Warriors or something like that, then, at least you got something back. And maybe that signals like, hey, it's time for a rebuild. But they should have traded these guys 3 years ago. They should have. And hit the reset button. But they kept thinking like, oh, no, this year will be the year. Oh, this year, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they're going to figure it out this time. Even when they were healthy, they weren't good enough to win. Even when they were healthy, they're blowing 3-1 leads and stuff. Like, it's just, they weren't, the experiment didn't work. And sometimes you just got to face reality. Sometimes it's just like, hey, it didn't work. I get like, there is clearly being little brother, father Steve Ballmer, because, you hear him talk about it several times, and, he built a new arena because of it and all that stuff, right? Like, but that's the thing, though. They are. Right? Like, Lakers, as turmoil as they've been lately, still at least got a championship in the same Clippers window. And the Clippers should have been there. And then the Clippers lose, blow a 3-1 lead, and then their excuse is like, oh, we didn't even really want to be there. You were up 3-1. Right? Like, if you lost in the first round, sure. But you did it. You were up 3-1. You blew it. You fumbled. You stumbled over your own feet. Like, and then you come up with the excuse of like, well, we didn't even really want to be there, so we weren't taking it serious. Obviously, you were taking it serious enough to go up 3-1, and then you just fell apart. Right? It's silly. It is so silly. But there's a reason that they're still looked at as little brother. The Lakers, in what was considered arguably their worst season ever, made the conference finals. The Clippers have only made the conference finals once in their entire franchise history. And to their credit, it was with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. If that's your standard and that's your goal, then great, you achieved it. But it doesn't seem like that's what it is. And James Harden and a bunch of role players are not getting you anywhere. Even if James Harden, even if he gets back to Houston James Harden and he's giving you, a 30-point triple-double, you're not going anywhere with that. You're not. I mean, James Harden had some talent back then. Like, you got a bunch of, like, cast-offs and, solid role guys. Don't get me wrong. You're taking some flyers on some guys. I don't hate the Clippers' depth. I actually think that they had a pretty decent offseason, but they weren't better without Paul George. And now you're definitely not better without Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Like, that's, like, it's delusion at that point. If you're the Clippers, I'm looking to try to sell Kawhi to the highest bidder. You probably have to wait till he plays a couple games. But if he gets back, and let's say he plays 20 games, like before the trade deadline or something, if I'm the Clippers, I'm going like, hey, who wants to take a chance on Kawhi? And you better pray that there's a team that goes, you know what, we will. And then I'm also looking to trade James Harden. Because there's no point. Because James Harden could also just leave next season. Like, James Harden could just go like, hey, Kawhi Leonard, like, it's me and a bunch of role players every year. Kawhi Leonard, he's not, I can't rely on him. So James Harden could just leave. If you're the Clippers, you gotta just get whatever you can at this point. Right? You blew it. You went all in on a bad hand that looked promising, and then the river came, and that was it, right? Like, okay, well, it came, it went, time to move on. Because you can't trust Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard isn't leading you to a championship anymore. He's not. And you gave him a new extension, you gave him all that money, and it's just like, for a guy that, if you're lucky, he's going to play 40 games this year. And then, on top of that, he can't stay healthy even in the playoffs. So even if you go on a deep playoff run, he's probably not making it out of that. Right? Like, it's just, and then James Harden is known to completely disappear. James Harden isn't going to be your best player in the playoffs. Like, the Clippers are cooked. They're done. Stick a fork in it. Right? Like, the Clippers organization just needs to come to the conclusion. You have some really nice young guys. They do. They have some nice young guys. They took some flyers on a couple young guys, right? If I was them, I would just kind of go in that direction, right? Like, just accept, like, hey, it didn't work, right? Trade Kawhi to the highest bidder. Can you get, 2 more young guys, right? Can you get, a couple guys that, maybe have some promise from a team? And then just, like, let guys like Bones Highland and, Chris Dunn and guys like that run the show. I would even look to trade Terrence Mann, because he's, 27, isn't he? He's 27, 26, something like that. I think he's 27, right? So I would trade Terrence Mann. Like everybody that's over like 25, I would trade. And just let guys, like you got Kai Jones, he's looked really good for them, right? He's looked very solid for them. I'm sure you could probably get something for Norman Powell. I'm sure you could get something for Terrence Mann, like I mentioned. I would trade Ivaka Zubac, right? Because he's good, but he's 27, right? And then just go young. Kevin Porter Jr., right? He was a guy that before all the stuff, I don't really want to get into that. I want to keep it basketball, right? Like, no, he was a guy that was a 20-point-a-game guy. He's on your team. So just go with that. Just go with Kevin Porter Jr., Kai Jones. You have, what other young guys do they have? They have like, what is it, Kobe Brown, I think. You have the other Christie, Cam Christie kid, right? Like you have a couple nice young guys, a couple nice young pieces. Everyone else I'd get rid of. Amir Coffey. I know you just brought in Chris Dunn, but you might be able to get something for Chris Dunn, right? Just completely tear it down. Get rid of everybody if you're over 25, you're being traded. And get as many assets as possible. Just kind of a thought. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think, Clippers are cooked? Clippers are done? Do you think, nah, they're not? Like, they'll figure it out. They'll work it out. However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.